Alright, so homework 9, part 1 for the Al zinc phase diagram, and it's asking you to plot a phase fraction of HCpA3, which is this sliver right over here on the right side. It's that triangle right here. So we're trying to find the phase fraction of that versus temperature for the AlZn at 75% zinc. So with mole fraction, it's at the 0.75 mark, not percent. It's the fraction. So this is using the lever rule. And one thing that helps me with the lever rule is whatever side the line is closest to is the majority of the percentage. So here we have the line closer to HCpA3 than it is to FCcA1. So we know we're going to have a larger percentage of the HCpA3 phase because lever rule uses the opposite length divided by the total length from left to right. So first we'll look at the horizontal lines, which determine the marking temperatures for our phase fraction temperature graph, and this is noted, this is in Kelvin, so you might have slightly different values in Celsius, but it's just a matter of conversion. I just did Kelvin. So first, if you look at 300 degrees Kelvin, using the lever rule, you have 75% HCpA3. So that's using the 0.75 minus the 0 divided by the entire length of 1. So on our graph here, we're going to note that at 300 Kelvin, 75%, this is for HCpA3. So we have that first value. And now we're going to look at the next horizontal line, which is the red line here at about 550 Kelvin. So we're going to look at 550 Kelvin below it and 550 above it. So below, if you look at the line from here to here, it's about like 0.1, 0.75, and then like 0.98. So if you use the lever rule with that, you have about 65% of the HCpA3. And that makes sense because the percentage of HCpA3 from this region is greater than the HCpA3 contribution from here to here. So it decreased down to 65%, and this is below 550 Kelvin, and it's 65%. So that's what we have so far. Now we're going to look above 550. Here is the region. We're moving out of this FCcA1 plus HCpA3 into the other FCcA1 to HCp plus A3. I think there was like number 1, number 2, something like that. But anywho, for here, if you look at the HCpA3 contribution using the lever rule, here the vertical line is closer to the FCcA1 contribution than it is to the HCpA3 contribution. So we know now that we will have less than 0.5% or less than 50% of HCpA3. So when you use the numbers here, it's about, for like the calculations for lever rule, it's about 0.6, 0.75, and then 0.98. So whenever you do the calculations with lever rule here, we have about 40% of HCpA3, and that's using these points right here, right above 550. So directly above 550, we have 40%. Now let's look at the next horizontal line after this red one is this other red one right here. So right below this line, which is at about 650 Kelvin. If you use the lever rule using about 0.65, 0.75, let's say 0.96, you get about 25% of HCPA3. And that's using the length of this divided by the entire length. So right below 650 Kelvin is 25%. Now, if you look above 650 Kelvin at the 0.75 mark, in this region right here, it's the liquid plus FCCA1 region. So as it passes 650, we have 0% of HCPA3. So we will note that in our temperature ranges. So above 650 Kelvin, 0%. So now we're good to go in using these values. We know if it goes above liquid FCCA1, it just goes up to liquid. So we have all the values that we need to plot this graph. So we can do the axis marks for this, 300, 400, and so on. And then we'll use our values here as part of the phase fraction on the side. So we'll do values of the 0.25. I'm just converting percentage to fraction. All right, so at 300 Kelvin, and also prior to 300, just because looking at the graph, it'll just continue and be like basically the same contribution because it just follows this line. But anywho, with 300, it's 0.75, or the 75% that we got. And then below 550 Kelvin, it's 65%. So 550 is here. So we bring that over with the 550. So the limit from the left as it approaches 550 Kelvin is 0.65, or the 65% we calculated. So then right after 550 Kelvin, it changes to 40%. So with this, we're going to draw a vertical line because it's the limit going above 550. So we have this at the 0.4 fraction. And then the next value is 650 Kelvin. So we'll note that right over here. So the limit coming from the left of 650 is 0.25 fraction, or the 25%. So we'll note that over here and connect the line. So now above 650 Kelvin is the limit from the right. So we're going to do our vertical line going down over to 0. And so that's 0 at this line. And it continues to be 0 for the rest of the time, just because of the values where HCPA3 isn't even present at 75% zinc. So I didn't include the concavities of these slopes just because Way doesn't really care about that. As long as you have the points and decreasing slope to the next point, and at the spots where there are horizontal lines in your phase diagram, you have vertical lines here.